hope you guys enjoyed our episode so far that we've done. Yeah, we're going to try to do a pretty good, interesting one this time too, as well. Hopefully it piques your interest. We're going to do Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. We're going to go ahead and go through the facts, whatever facts we can find, evidence, stories, and possible myth that goes into it and what it all happened. And I hope you guys stick around for the next episode, because me and our buddy Noodle, the co-host, we're going to be dressing up for Halloween for the next special. So I hope you guys are intrigued. We're going to go ahead and look into the origins and the facts and the fiction and the how do you say it? The facts and the mythology, the mythos of, let's say, all the classic monsters, the werewolf, the Frankenstein, Dracula. So y'all just go ahead and hang tight, and then hopefully you'll love this episode and the next one as well. I hope you stay tuned. At the very least, if you don't want to like, if you don't want to subscribe, that's fine. Although subscription is free, just so you know. Some people just don't understand that. They don't know that. But if you tickle that little like bell, that notification bell on there, it'll give you any notifications of whenever we update and have any new videos. And that way you can at least check them out if you want to. If you don't, that's up to you. But we're all in this game of life together, so let's try to figure some things out. Maybe we might be able to come to some conclusions together. We'll see. Okay, let's get into it. Just 1 second. Let me put him back up. All right, everybody. We're situated now. Okay, let's go ahead and start out with the facts. The facts is we're going to start with Butch Cassidy. Okay, we're going to start out with the fact that he was born as Robert Leroy Parker in April 13th, 1866 in Beaver, Utah. He died November 7th, 1908 at 42 years of age in Bolivia by gunshot wounds, supposedly. Better known as Butch Cassidy was his nickname. And he was an American bank and train robber and the leader of a gang of outlaws known as the Wild Bunch in the Old West. I think we all may know that, but those of us that don't, now we do. Okay, his other names that were known as was Mike Cassidy, George Cassidy, Jim Lowe, and Santiago Maxwell. That's news to me. His occupations was farmhand, cowboy, butcher, thief, robber, gang leader, outlaw. His convictions: he was horse theft, cattle rustling, bank, and train robbery. The penalties that he had was he served 18 months of a 2-year sentence and released January 1896. He engaged in criminal activity for more than a decade at the end of the 19th century and the early 20th century. But the pressure of being pursued by law enforcement, notably the Pinkerton Detective Agency, forced him to flee the country. He fled with his accomplice Harry Longaball, known as the Sundance Kid. We've all heard of him as well. And Longaball's girlfriend, Ep.6. The trio traveled first to Argentina and then to Bolivia, where Parker and Longaball are believed to have been killed in a shootout with the Bolivian army in November 1908. The exact circumstances of their fate continue to be disputed. Of course, because we don't know. Now, Parker's life, or Cassidy's life and death, have been extensively dramatized in film, television, and literature, and he remains one of the most well-known icons of the Wild West, myths in modern times. Okay, his early life. As said earlier, he was born Robert Leroy Parker. So if you hear me say Parker, that's Cassidy. Okay? Try not to confuse you all. Okay, so he was born Robert Leroy Parker on April 13th, 1866 in Beaver, Utah Territory, the first of 13 children of English immigrants, Maximilian Parker and Anne Campbell Gillis. The Parker and the Gillis families had converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints while still living in the United Kingdom. Maximilian Parker was 12 years old when his family arrived in Salt Lake City in 1856 as Mormon pioneers. Anne Gillis was born and lived in Tyneside in northeast England before immigrating to the U.S. with her family in 1859 at age 14. The couple were married in July 1865. Robert Parker grew up on his parents' ranch near Circleville. Parker fled his home as a teenager and while working on a dairy ranch met cattle thief Mike Cassidy. He subsequently worked on several ranches in addition to a brief apprenticeship with a butcher in Rock Springs, Wyoming, where he got the nickname by the word butcher, which morphed to Butch, to which he soon added the last name Cassidy in honor of his old friend and mentor. That's interesting, don't you think? Something how a famous name could be not even their name at all. Okay, his criminal career. Butch's first criminal offense was minor. Around 1880, he journeyed to a clothier shop in another town, but found it closed. He broke into the shop and stole a pair of jeans and some pie, leaving an IOU promising to pay on his next visit. The clothier pressed charges, but Cassidy was acquitted by a jury. He continued to work on ranches until 1884 when he moved to Telluride, Colorado, ostensibly to seek work, but perhaps to deliver stolen horses to buyers. Cassidy led a cowboy's life in Wyoming and Montana before returning to Telluride in 1887, where he met Matt Warner, the owner of a racehorse. Cassidy and Warner raced the horse at various events, dividing the winnings between them. So they had a little racket going on. Cassidy's first bank robbery took place on June 24th, 1889, when Warner, two of the McCarty brothers, and he robbed the San Miguel Valley Bank in Telluride. Businessman L.L. Nunn had taken a controlling interest in the bank the previous year. They stole around $21,000, equivalent to $684,000 as of 2022. I don't got the exact current facts for this year, but I think it's close enough, don't y'all? After which they fled to the Robbers Roost, a remote hideout in southeastern Utah. In 1890, Cassidy purchased a ranch on the outskirts of Du Bois, Wyoming. This is located across the state from the Hole in the Wall, a natural geographical formation and a popular hideout for outlaws, including Cassidy's during the era. Cassidy's ranching was possibly a facade for clandestine activities, perhaps with the Hole in the Wall outlaws, as he was never financially successful at ranching. Cassidy's ranch used the unmistakable brand of a reverse E, then a box, and an E. So it was an E, reverse E, a box in the middle, and then an E. That was his symbol. In early 1894, Cassidy became involved romantically with rancher and outlaw Ann Bassett. Her father was a rancher who did business with Cassidy, supplying him with fresh horses and beef. That same year, Cassidy was arrested at Lander, Wyoming, for stealing horses and possibly for running a protection racket among the local ranchers there. He was imprisoned in Wyoming State Prison in Laramie, where he served 18 months of a 2-year sentence. He was released and pardoned in January 1896 by Governor William Alfred Richards. He became involved briefly with Bassett's older sister, Josie, before returning to Anne. Okay, let's take I gotta get a drink here. Sorry, guys. So far, there's a lot going on here, and we're probably roughly at about 10 and a half minutes right now. So I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but I don't want to over-lengthen this video as well. But I'm going to hit all the points, and then at the end we can kind of look back and review. So please be patient with me. I'm still getting my bearings with doing this. I'm still new to this whole deal. And I hope you guys are interested. I hope I keep you intrigued. I hope you really do like this stuff. Okay? But I do this because I love doing it. I want to do this. I mean, I'm not looking into getting clicks. I'm not looking into getting shares, likes. If I do, that's great. If I don't, that's fine as well. I just wish people would at least view this a little bit and maybe pique their interest. Anyhow, let's continue on. Sorry for that little rant. Cassidy was associated with a wide circle of criminals, most notably his closest friend, William Ellsworth Elsie Lay, Kid Curry Logan, Ben the Tall Texan Kilpatrick, Harry Tracy, and Will News Carver, Laura Bullion, and George Flatnose Curry, who collectively became the Wild Bunch. So that was his gang. The gang assembled sometime after Cassidy's release from prison in 1896 and took its name from the Doolin Dalton gang, also known as the Wild Bunch. On August 13th, 1896, Cassidy, Lay, Logan, and Bob Meeks robbed the bank at Montpelier, Idaho. Escaping with roughly $7,000. Cassidy recruited Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, also known as the Sundance Kid, into the gang soon after. All right, let's continue on here. Bassett, Lay, and Lay's girlfriend, Maud Davis, all joined Cassidy at Robber's Roost in early 1897. The four hid there until April, when Lay and Cassidy sent the women home so that the men could plan their next robbery. They ambushed a small group of men carrying the payroll of the Pleasant Valley Coal Company in the mining town of Castlegate, Utah. On April 22nd, 1897, stealing a sack of silver coins, with which they fled back to Robber's Roost. On June 2nd of 1899, the gang robbed a Union Pacific Overland Flyer passenger train near Wilcox, Wyoming, a robbery that earned them a great deal of notoriety and resulted in a massive manhunt. Many notable lawmen took part in the hunt, but they did not find them. Kid Curry and George Curry had a shootout with lawmen following the train robbery, killing Sheriff Joe Hazen. Tom Horn, a killer for hire employed by the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, was told by explosives expert Bill Speck about the Hazen shooting. Pinkerton detective Charlie Siringo was then assigned the task of capturing the outlaws. He became friends with Elfie Landusky, who was using the last name Curry after becoming pregnant by Kid Curry's brother, Lonnie Logan. And Siringo intended to locate the gang through her. On July 11, 1899, Lay and others were involved in a Colorado and Southern Railroad train robbery near Folsom, New Mexico, which Cassidy might have planned and personally directed. A shootout ensued with local law enforcement, during which Lay killed Sheriff Edward Farr and Henry Love. Lay was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment at the New Mexico State Penitentiary. The Wild Bunch, typically separated following a robbery and fled in different directions, later reuniting at a predetermined location such as the Hole in the Wall Robber's Roost, or Fanny Porter's brothel in San Antonio. Seems like they kind of had themselves a little bit of a plan, didn't they? Okay. Cassidy approached Utah Governor Heber Wells to negotiate amnesty. Wells advised him to ask the Union Pacific Railroad to drop their criminal charges against him, and Union Pacific Chairman E.H. Harriman attempted to meet with Cassidy through Warner. On August 29th, 1900, Cassidy, Longabaugh, and others robbed Union Pacific Train No. 3 near Tipton, Wyoming, breaking Cassidy's earlier promise to the governor of Wyoming and ending any chance of amnesty. On February 28th, 1900, lawmen attempted to arrest Lonnie Logan at his aunt's home. Lonnie was killed in the shootout that followed, and his cousin Bob Lee was arrested for rustling and sent to prison in Wyoming. On March 28th, George Curry and News Carver were pursued. They had stolen in the Wilcox train robbery. The posse engaged them in a shootout during which deputies Andrew Gibbons and Frank LeSueur were killed while Carver and Curry escaped. Okay, let me pause this for a sec. On April 17th, George Curry was killed in a shootout with Grand County, Utah Sheriff John Tyler and Deputy Sam Jenkins. On May 26, Kid Curry rode into Moab, Utah, and killed both Tyler and Jenkins in another shootout in retaliation for the deaths of George and Lonnie. In December, Cassidy posed alongside Longabaugh, Logan, Carver, and Ben Kilpatrick in Fort Worth, Texas, for the now famous Fort Worth 5 photograph. The Pinkerton Agency obtained a copy of the photograph and began to use it for wanted posters. On July 3rd, 1901, Kid Curry and a group of men robbed a Great Northern train near Wagner, Montana, stealing more than $60,000 in cash, which would be equivalent to $2,110,000 currently. The gang split up, but a posse led by Sheriff Elijah Bryant caught up with News Carver and killed him. Kilpatrick was captured in St. Louis on November 5th at Josie Blakey's resort on Chestnut Street. In his pocket, they found a key to a room at the Laclade Hotel. The next morning, they found Laura Bullion in the lobby checking out with her luggage. In her valise, I think it's called valise. Sorry, I'm a little bit simple. Was $8,500 in unsigned banknotes from the Great Northern robbery. So they pretty much caught her red-handed there, trying to leave. She had bad timing, didn't she? I mean, that's just crazy, isn't it? I think. Anyways. I had hair in my mouth. That's not good. Curry killed Knoxville policeman William Dinwiddle and Robert Saylor in another shootout on December 13th, then escaped. He returned to Montana, pursued by Pinkertons and other law enforcement officers, where he shot and killed rancher James Winters in retaliation for killing his brother Johnny years before. Cassidy and Longabaugh fled to New York City, feeling continuous pressure from the numerous law enforcement agencies pursuing them and seeing their gang falling apart. They departed from there to Buenos Aires, Argentina, aboard the British steamer Herminius on February 20th, 1901, along with Longabaugh's companion Ep.6. Cassidy posed as James Ryan, Place's fictitious brother. They settled in a 4-room log cabin on 15,000 acre ranch that they purchased on the east bank of the Rio Blanco near Cholula, just east of the Andes in the Chubut. Bruce Chatwin's in Patagonia references a letter Butch wrote from Cholula to Elsa Lay's mother-in-law in Utah. Dated August 10th, 1902, the letter says, "Our little family of 3, living in a 4-room house with 300 cattle, 1,500 sheep, and 28 horses." Chatwin states the letter resides with the Utah State Historical Society. On February 14th, 1905, 2 English-speaking bandits held up the Banco de Tarapacu y Argentino in Rio Gallegos, 700 miles south of Cholula, near the Strait of Magellan, and the pair vanished north across the Patagonian grasslands. Cassidy and Longaball sold the Cholula ranch on May 1st, fearing that law enforcement had located them. The Pinkerton agency had known their location for some time, but the snow and the hard winter of Patagonia had prevented their agent Frank DeMeo from making an arrest. Governor Julio Lozana issued an arrest warrant, but Sheriff Edward Humphreys, a Welsh Argentine who was friendly with Cassidy and enamored of place, tipped them off. The trio then fled north to San Carlos de Bariloche, where they embarked on the steamer Condor across Nahuel Huapi Lake and into Chile. They returned to Argentina by the end of the year. Cassidy and Longaball, placed and an unknown male robbed the Banco de la Nación Argentina branch in Villa Mercedes on December 19th, 400 miles west of Buenos Aires, taking 12,000 pesos. They fled across the Andes to reach the safety of Chile. On June 30th, 1906, Place decided that she had enough of life on the run. So Longaball took her back to San Francisco. Cassidy obtained honest work under the alias James Santiago Maxwell at the Concordia tin mine in the Santa Vera Cruz range of the central Bolivian Andes, where Longaball joined him upon his return. Their main duties included guarding the company payroll. That's a bad crew to have guarding the payroll, don't you think? Obviously, they didn't know. Or they wouldn't have. Okay, let's continue on. The 2 traveled to Santa Cruz in late 1907, a frontier town in Bolivia's eastern savanna, still wanting to settle down as respectable ranchers. Okay. Now, a courier was carrying the payroll for the Arameo Frank and Cia silver mine on November 3rd, 1908, near the small mining town of San Vicente in southern Bolivia, when he was attacked by 2 masked American bandits believed to be Cassidy and Longaball. Witnesses saw them 3 days later in San Vicente, where they lodged in a small boarding house owned by miner Bonifacio Casasola. Casasola became suspicious of them because they had a mule from the Arameo mine, identifiable from the company's brand. He notified a nearby telegraph officer who notified the Abaroa Cavalry Regiment stationed nearby. The unit dispatched 3 soldiers under the command of Captain Justo Concha, and they notified the local authorities. The soldiers, the police chief, the local mayor, and some of his officials all surrounded the lodging house on the evening of November 6th, intending to arrest them. As they approached the house, the bandits opened fire, killing one of the soldiers and wounding another, and starting a gunfight which lasted for several hours into the evening and the night. At around 2 a.m., during a lull in fighting, the mayor heard a man scream 3 times inside the house. Then 2 successive shots were fired from inside the house. Pause for thoughts, huh? Let me pause for just a second here. These daggone, I got a couple gnats here just drive me nuts. Can't stand them. It's hard to focus on this stuff whenever you got that going on. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's continue on. Let's try to get this all covered. The authorities entered the house the next morning, where they found two bodies with numerous bullet wounds in the arms and legs. The man assumed to be Longabaugh had a bullet wound in his forehead, and the man thought to be Cassidy had a bullet hole in the temple. The local police report speculated that, judging from the positions of the bodies, Cassidy had probably shot Longabaugh to put him out of his misery, then killed himself with his final bullet. Excuse me. Sorry about that. The Topeka police identified the bandits as the men who robbed the Arameo payroll, but Bolivian authorities did not know their real names, nor could they positively identify them. The two bodies were buried at the small San Vicente cemetery near the grave of a German miner named Gustav Zimmer. American forensic anthropologist Clyde Snow and his researchers attempted to find the graves in 1991, but they did not find any remains with DNA matching the living relatives of Cassidy and Longabaugh. Snow's research formed the basis of the British documentary Wanted, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Okay. In 2017, a new search was launched for Cassidy's grave, which is thought to be on a mine outside Good Springs, Nevada. The dig found human remains, but they did not match the DNA provided. So that could have meant several different things. The DNA may not have matched because there wasn't enough to match it. Maybe it just wasn't even the right DNA to even match. It was just not a match. Those are other things we're going to discuss later on. Okay. So rumors of survival. That's the next subject here. John McPhee's Annals of the Former World repeats a story that Dr. Francis Smith told to geologist David Love in the 1930s. Smith stated that he had seen Cassidy, who told him that his face had been altered by a surgeon in Paris, and he showed Smith an old bullet wound that Smith recognized as work that he had done. Josie Bassett claimed in 1960 that Cassidy came to visit her in the 1920s after returning home from South America. And he died in Johnny, Nevada 15 years ago. Residents in his hometown of Circleville, Utah, claimed in an interview that he worked in Nevada until his death. Historian Charles Kelly observed in his book, The Outlaw Trail, it seems exceedingly strange that Cassidy never returned to Circleville, Utah to visit his father if he were still alive. According to his great-nephew, Bill Bettinson, he did return to Utah to visit his family many times. And Bruce Chatwin, in his book Patagonia, says, I went to see the star witness, his sister, Miss Lulu Parker Bettinson, a forthright and energetic woman in her 90s. She has no doubts her brother came back and ate blueberry pie with family at Circleville in 1925. She believes he died of pneumonia in Washington in the late 1930s. Also, an episode of a TV series called In Search of in 1978 examined the claims and possible evidence of Cassidy's return to America during the 1920s. In a series of interviews with residents of Baggs, Wyoming, a popular destination for the Wild Bunch during their raiding years, residents claimed that Cassidy had visited for several days in 1924, driving a Ford Model T. Bettinson stated that he returned to the family home in Circleville during this period and picked up his brother Mark in a Ford, then drove to their father's home where she also lived. Her father allegedly said to her, I'll bet you don't know who that is. This is your brother, Robert Leroy. She stated Cassidy was full of regrets, particularly at having disappointing his mother. She quoted him lamenting, all I did is make a wreck of my life. She claims that he lived out his years in the Northwest and died in 1937, and that the family agreed not to disclose his final resting place, since they had chased him all his life, and now he's going to rest in peace. On an episode of the series Mission Declassified in 2019, investigative journalist Christoph Putzel met with local researcher Marilyn Grace at Cassidy's childhood cabin on the Parker Ranch in Circleville to talk about the alleged burial of Cassidy there on July 20th, 1937. Grace explains that Cassidy was secretly buried at Tom's Cabin, a former sheep herder's log cabin located in a remote area of the property, a favorite camping spot for his brothers and him. Grace says an eyewitness neighbor, D. Crosby, saw the burial take place at the cabin. Earlier, Putzel spoke to Alta Orton, another Parker neighbor, who described the family as being dressed in funeral-like attire on that same day. Grace goes on to say that cadaver dogs had been brought to the cabin in an attempt to locate remains and led to a positive indication. The underside of the cabin was later dug and 2 bones were discovered, identified as a human spinal bone and a toe bone. Putzel had forensic scientist Susanna Ryan conduct a DNA test on the bones. Ryan confirmed they were human, but lacked enough DNA for a complete profile. As the site may have become public knowledge, the Parker family is believed to have since excavated Cassidy's remains at the cabin and removed them to a different burial site, leaving the spinal and toe bone behind in the process. Okay, everybody. I think we went through that fairly quickly. I'm sorry, it's a lot of information to digest and or to ingest rather. But anyways, I think this is a very interesting case. You had people that these guys just didn't let up. You would think after about the second or third robbery, you're going to say, to heck with this. I ain't doing this no more, man. We got too much heat on us. Oh, no, not these guys. No. I think the Wild Bunch was a suitable name for them because they were wild. They were wild. But anyways, I ask you this. In closing, I'm gonna tell you this. Did Butch Cassidy die, or did he escape? What's your thoughts on this? And if you want, you can comment on it. Tell me your thoughts, your ideas. What do you think? Also, if he escaped, did he ever go back and uncover his hidden gold? Because there was supposedly hidden gold. That's another theory. I didn't really touch on that. I'm sorry about that. I apologize. Some sources say he lived in South America for a while, then came back to North America later on. Do you think that was a possibility? Do you think that happened? Or do you think that he died that day? Do you think he was one of the 2 men that was shot and killed? Or do you think that perhaps maybe they was in that building and perhaps maybe there was 2 other Americans and they used them as dummies and they escaped? Both of them. Or just one of them. Tell me what your thoughts are on this. This is a very intriguing story and it's been around for a long time. A lot of people have tried to investigate this and come to a conclusion on what had happened. But these are mysteries that we may never know the answer to. We probably will never know the answer to. But it's very interesting, and it's something to know that they went through their excursions or journeys doing what they did. Obviously, his sister saying that he had regrets, and I'm sure he did because he saw his gang dwindling down. One would get killed, another get killed, another get killed, several in prison, things like that. And it's a life. It's a Wild West type of life. It's not the type of life to lead, and he realized that probably too late. But those are the facts that I know, that I have as I see them, that I've researched. And it's up to you to come to your conclusions. So if you want, and you're interested, and you want to see the next episode, the Halloween special we're going to be doing, you get to see me and little old Noodle dressed up for Halloween. We'll check it out. We're going to dig into the origins of, as I said, the origins of Frankenstein, Dracula, the werewolf, witches, warlocks, etc. I'm going to dig into it. I'm going to try not to make it especially too long, but it may run an hour. It may be a little bit longer, but we're not trying to do that. It's going to run what it's going to run. And you can watch what you want or don't watch. But I'd appreciate it if you would check it out. I think you might be interested. This is the Trading Post signing off, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.